classic drum beat. That's the beat of the heart of the original man, the black man.
Yes, sir.
The maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth.
God of the universe.
It was the black man who put the sun out there into space.
That's right.
It was the original man that set the stars out into the universe.
That's right.
We know that the first man was a black man, is that right?
That's right.
That makes us the father of civilization. Is this not Father's Day?
I was born and raised in the city of Houston. I have a great love for the city of Houston, a great affection for the city, particularly the north side. I was born in what is called Homestead Hospital.
Okay.
And those of you who've been around for a minute know that Homestead Hospital was that hospital that you did not want to go to when you needed some quality medical attention. But that is where I was born, right there on Homestead Road. And subsequently, I was raised in the same area. I came out of Fifth Ward. I went into North Forest ISD. This is where I received my schooling from first grade all the way through the 12th grade. A little something about myself. I have 4 siblings, 1 sister and 4 brothers. I am what they call the middle child. I did not have the ideal childhood. I didn't have a white picket fence. I didn't have fresh paint on the house. Matter of fact, sometimes we didn't have lights. Sometimes we didn't have water. Sometimes we had to warm ourselves up by the gas stove on a cold winter morning because we didn't have any heat. So I've seen my share of adversities as a child, but I believe those adversities prepared me for those I would go through and have yet to face as an adult. My father passed away when I was 11 years old. I never knew him very, very well, but from what I understand and the times that I spent with him, he was a very, very good person. He was a hustler, and a lot of people may have frowned on the things that he did for a living. But like a lot of brothers out there in the streets, they may be doing that which is criminal, but in their hearts they're good people. And that's the way that I saw my father. My father did not get the opportunity to teach me a lot because he died at such a young age. However, one of the things that he did instill in me is when I used to look at him with the big bankroll and the jewelry, and I'd look at all this cash just laying around his house. And when I looked at him and I told him with admiration that I wanted to be like him, he stopped me dead in my tracks. He told me very, very, very specifically and plainly, you do not want to be like me. And what he meant was, take another path in life. And that's what I'm trying to do. Now my mother, who is still alive by the grace of God, was a good mother. She was very, very young when she had me as a child. She was 19 years of age when she gave birth to me, but she already had 2 children. My older brother she had at the age of 17, and my sister, who I believe she had at the age of 15. So she had every reason in the world to abort me and to get rid of me. But I thank God that she did not do that. And in my childhood, my mom went through a long period where she had a very, very bad drug addiction. So in a lot of my childhood, I grew up without a father present and sometimes without a mother present. But I always knew that God was present, and I'm grateful for my life. The ups, the downs, the good and the bad, I'm grateful for it.
The God has blessed us with a beautiful day, which is a sign that he has smiled on our efforts to encourage black brothers. For when we encourage black brothers, we encourage black children. And when we encourage black brothers, we encourage black sisters. So the encouragement of the black man is the encouragement of the entire community. There's so much going on that it's real easy to get discouraged. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So we use the term encouragement because we believe that if you beat a black man down for what he has not done, you're being non-productive. We've already tried hitting him over the head with the truth, and that has not worked. So today we decided we would take a different approach. This is the first time in the history of the city of Houston that we've had an event like this one encouraging black fathers.
That's right.
It's as if though something was already in me and I just needed to be placed in the right circumstances and the right environment for it to come out of me. In my case, that particular environment was the Nation of Islam. But even as a child, I hated to see people being picked on. I hated to see people being bullied. I hated to see injustice. And when I was 6 or 7 or 8 years old, sometimes I would have arguments with my family. It might be about a football game or something. And I was just this young militant, always trying to stand my ground and hold my point. So I've always been this type of person. I just never had the opportunity to be in the environment where it could be developed and nourished. But my grandmother, who by the grace of God is still alive, she's about to turn 87 years old, was an activist in the unions. And she used to drag myself and my siblings to different rallies, and we would go and support different political causes and things of that nature. So I was kind of reared in a way by my grandmother to always stand up and fight for what you believe in. And by the grace of God, that has never left me. That's what I'm doing. Many HPD police brutality cases coming right here out of Houston and Harris County. So there have been many different cases that I've gotten involved in. But the ones that have had the most profound effect on my life are those cases that nobody really knows about or ever sees. Those cases that never make the news. See, sometimes people think that all an activist does is televised, but that's not true. The real work is not done on television. The real work is done off television and offline. As I heard a brother say, that activism offline and off television is the new cool. But I believe something that I can remember that touched me and I will never forget it. This is just a small thing, but it's big to me. Once I received a message from a young lady, and she said, "You know, Brother Derek, I want to thank you very much for that conversation we had about 5 years ago." She said, 5 years ago, I had a conversation with you over the phone. And I was about to abort my child. I was pregnant at the time. And what you said to me on that day made me to change my mind. And she said, every time I see you on the news, I look over at my little son and I kiss him. And I say, thank God for Brother Derek. She said, so I just want to say thank you because I don't know where I would be without this little 5-year-old boy. But you know what? I didn't even remember the conversation because I've had so many like that.
Right.
And it's feedback like that that keeps me going. But I've been involved in so many cases. There's just too many to name.
Can you recall maybe your most memorable case where something just possibly stood out to you or touched you in a way where you just never expected it to?
Yes, I believe the most memorable case for me was being intricately involved in the case to fight for justice for the Jing 6. It was this case and others that would take us into these little small towns in Louisiana and in Texas. And when you go into those small towns, it's almost like you're traveling back in time. It's like you're in a spaceship or something and you're going back 30, 40 years from now. And to see how our people still live in these small towns was really, really, really disheartening. It really, really hurt me. And I'm going to tell you what hurt me the most. Yes, it hurt me that in the year 2014, you still have Jim Crow laws being enforced in small towns like this. That hurt me. But what really hurt me is that you have black people who have so much power when we are unified, still gravely afraid of white people in these small towns. And when I say afraid, I mean deathly afraid. And when you go into a circumstance like that, it gives you a reality check. It lets you know that we don't live in a post-racial society, and it lets you know that we have a far, far longer way to go than we think we do. So the Jena 6, I believe, had a profound effect on me. Another case that had a very profound effect on me was a case in Paris, Texas, where a young man by the name of Brandon McClellan was dragged to his death, we believe, by some young Caucasians. And just to see some of the blatant evidence that these investigations turned over, and to see how these white folks and these scared to death Negroes would just let these people go, thinking that they don't have a price to pay for taking a black life. I mean, these are just things that you never forget. It's not something you can learn in the university. It's not something you can take a course on. You can only see what I've seen and learn what I have learned by putting your feet to the ground and getting out there and going to fight for the people.
When we want God's blessing, we start with what? Prayer. We start with what? Prayer. What? Prayer. So at this time, we want to start with prayer. So we want to ask everybody to stand where you are and assume the position of prayer that you are most comfortable with. This is not a religious event. We're not here to promote one religion over another. We're here to show a display of unity. Is that all right? So we'll have a Muslim prayer, and we'll have a Christian prayer, and if our brother Kofi would come forward, we would like to do a libation in memory of our ancestors. Everybody all right? Yes, sir. Stay with me, black folk. Give yourselves a round of applause.
The book ASAP, and ASAP is an acronym that means a street activist perspective. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows ASAP as a military term that means as soon as possible. Well, as soon as possible represents a sense of urgency. So that's what the ASAP is about. We wanted to mean a sense of urgency, but from my personal view, it means a street activist perspective. Now, just like I told you, there are certain things that I've learned being on the street as an activist that you cannot learn anywhere else. This book is my attempt to share that with my brothers and sisters. In this book, we'll deal with a lot of subject matters that we don't like to talk about in the black community. I mean, there are just certain things that we even among ourselves don't like to talk about. We don't like to talk about molestation in the black community. We don't like to talk about teen lesbians in the black community. We just don't like to. We would rather not talk about it because these are painful subjects to so many of us. But what I try to do in the book in a non-judgmental way is open up the way for dialogue on many of these issues that we don't like to deal with. The book is funny, it's a little heart-wrenching, it's got some good storytelling in there, but really what it is just me weighing in on our issues. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's so important that persons like myself do that. Most of the time when you see black men representing our community on television, be they news analysts or whatever, most of the time they don't really represent the way we feel. Most of the black people that have been elevated in the world of media, their experience is not the same experience as the average black person. It just isn't. Most of these brothers have not been to the hood in a very long time. So they themselves are disconnected from the people. And if you're disconnected from the people, how can you stand before the world and really represent the best interest and the mindset of the people? I believe that I am a brother who came from the hood. I might not live in the hood, but I was in the hood this morning, getting my car washed. I believe in giving back and I believe in giving black. But I've never lost touch with the hood, and I never will by God's grace and permission. So I believe that I have an opportunity to speak for brothers that are not being spoken for right now. I'll give you an example if you don't mind.
No, you go ahead.
I remember when George Zimmerman went to trial, and he was. I remember when George Zimmerman went to trial, and he was vindicated. And I watched all these black men speaking about George Zimmerman's acquittal from the black perspective. And what I was hearing them say on television was totally different from what I was hearing in the circles, in the barbershops, and the beauty salons, and so on and so forth. I'm like, what they're saying does not represent how we feel right now. But then there was a rapper by the name of T.I. And T.I. came out, he said, man, I really admire Trayvon Martin's family. Because I'm going to be honest with you, had that been my child, George Zimmerman never would have made it to trial. And I said to myself, that's really what black men are saying. That's what we are all saying. That's certainly what I was saying. Yeah. So there's a disconnect from those who speak for us and us. And I think what it does is it increases the world's misunderstanding of who we are. So this book is my attempt to step in the arena to speak for us.
We're thinking about court dates. We're thinking about money that we will not have when we want to have it. We're thinking about something dark and negative and not something positive. Well, today one of the things that we wanted to do was start the process of redefining child support. I'm going to say that again. We want to start the process of redefining child support. But before we start that process, we know that there are a lot of brothers present who have issues with child support as we perceive it right now. If you have those issues, we don't want you to raise your hand. But what we want you to do is make your way over to the table where Sister Erica Watson and the team of attorneys are. We have a free legal clinic going on here today. They can't get to all of your issues today, but they can get to some of them, and they can give you information on how to contact them. See, it's one thing to tell black men that they need to do better with their child support, and it's a whole different thing to tell them that they need to be better, yet encourage them by giving them the information they need. Let's give that team of attorneys a round of applause for volunteering their time to help out the community.
I've been a part of the Nation of Islam for 20 years, believe it or not. I've been a part of the Nation of Islam for nearly half my life. I joined very early in life. It didn't take long when I began to study the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for me to realize that this is what I had been looking for my entire life. What it provided for me was an atmosphere where I can develop my gifts and my talents so that I can become an asset to my community. All of the truths that I longed to hear and the questions that I wanted answered about God, about religion, about history, about science, mathematics, male-female relationships, any and everything that I wanted to learn as a child, I began to study and learn in the Nation of Islam. Now, I'm a firm believer that if you want a child to do something different or to be something different, you have to show him something different or show him somebody different. When I heard Minister Louis Farrakhan speak the truth as boldly as he did and still does, that had a profound impact on me, because in him I saw personified some people say that they believe in God and they trust in God and so on and so forth, but they don't walk into the lion's den like Louis Farrakhan. So that made me want to study what it was that he was studying that was making him so fearless in standing up for the truth and speaking the truth regardless of the consequences. So I began studying, and then I'll tell you how I joined the Nation of Islam. Back in 1993, I was in my old neighborhood on Homestead in Tidwell, and I was at this little Jack in the Box. I was in the drive-thru, and I saw one of the brothers from the Nation of Islam selling a newspaper. And I bought a couple papers from him. I was happy to see him out there. Then I saw the police harassing him, and it made me so angry that they were harassing this brother who was trying to do so much good in the community, while there were others doing that which is destructive to the community right up the block, but they weren't bothering them. So I got out and I challenged the police officer. And the brother who was being arrested at the time, his name is Jeffrey Muhammad, I still know him, he's a close friend of mine, instructed me, calm down, go and call the mosque, tell them what's going on, and so on and so forth. He was training me on how to handle a situation. After that, I went to the mosque and I joined the mosque. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I ended up being in the Ministry of Justice and handling those kind of cases in the community. You understand what I'm saying? It was already in me. I just had to be in an environment where it could come out. And I think it's a very, very important point for us to understand. The greatness that we want to see come out of young black men or young black males, it's already in them. They're just not in the environment that brings the greatness out of them. Many of them are in the environment that brings exactly the opposite out of them. They're growing up in a household where people are telling them you ain't gonna be nothing. If you hear that enough times as a child, at some point it's like hearing a song over and over again. It's like a record. It starts playing over and over and over again in your mind. The next thing you know, you start walking like you're not gonna be nothing, dressing like you're not gonna be nothing, talking like you're not gonna be nothing, because your belief system has been created by your environment. So we have to create the environment that brings the greatness out of young black males and not the thug out of young black males. See, it's not all their fault. It's never all a child's fault. Never. Never is it all a child's fault. But that's what the Nation of Islam did for me in a nutshell. It gave me the knowledge, and it created me to understand. It created for me the environment to bring out of me what God had already put in me.
Well, my name is Dr. Kepler Kyles, and I'm a book publisher and a tour guide. And we're here today with Project Forward to celebrate fathers, the role of the fathers in the family. Talk a little bit about what I do. I publish books. This is my most recent book, Kemet 101, which is based on my field research in Egypt. It's an important text on Egypt because a lot of people, they see hidden colors, they see a lot, but they don't really understand the intricacies. So this is probably the best introductory text on that topic. Another text of importance that I think is just vital to anybody who want to understand what lies beyond this actual physical realm of existence is the Kybalion. And the Kybalion focuses on universal law and the relationship between the various realms of existence. The importance of that, people look at our ancestors and they say, well, our ancestors were hugely successful. The reason why they were so successful is because they did not go against universal law. They worked with universal law. And this book goes into detail about the functioning of universal law. So all of these texts that you see, every single one of them is a classic text, a text that every sophisticated person must read to understand that we were impactful before and after slavery. And that slavery does not define the black experience, not in this country or any other country.
Let's get
also,
around
we'll talk a little bit about the DVDs. We do a little bit of DVD production. This is the African origin of Christianity. So this uses ancient texts to describe that those very first Christians were African people, and their philosophy wasn't anything like the mutant belief that we are learning today.
We are so concerned about what's going on the outside, that we're not willing to look past what's going on the outside to deal with what's going on the inside. And if we deal with what's going on the inside, then it will ultimately affect the outside. So we always hear society talk about the young black male and how he needs to pull his pants up. And this is true. I mean, no civilized person wants to see you walking around with your underwear showing. That's just not civilized. But when they walk around with their pants sagging the way they do, that's their way of telling the world that they don't care. And I'm saying it nicely. That they don't care. I don't care what you think about me. And when you look at what happened in the 60s, our parents marching for justice, marching for inclusion, wanting to be able to go into a restaurant and eat with white people, go into a hotel and reside with white people, wanting to be able to go to the toilet on the side of white folk and drink out of white water fountains and so on and so forth. What they did to us, they didn't give us integration. They gave us what I call the illusion of inclusion. Because when they said it was okay for us to go and patronize white businesses that normally would not allow black folks in, we took all of our business into the white community, but the white community didn't take any of their business into our community. So our businesses shut down. Our hotels shut down. Our gas stations shut down. Now the businesses in our community are owned not by us, but by foreigners. Now, how does this relate to my brother's question? Because we shut our businesses down, we did not leave anything for our children. So now they're bitter, they're angry, they're walking around with their pants sagging, saying that they don't care. See, when I deal with them, I don't worry about how their pants look. I ultimately get to that. But their pants is just a sign of their mindset. So if I can penetrate the mind and make him see himself differently, then it's easy for me to tell him to pull his pants up. But complaining about it is not going to do any good. So when I say if you pull up their minds, their pants will follow, I'm saying telling them to pull up their pants is not the first order of priority. The first order of priority is for you to find out what's going on with him and why his pants are looking like that. And if you can get in his head, and if you can teach him that he is the original man, that he is the creator of the sun, he's the creator of the stars, he is the father of mathematics, he's the father of science, he's the father of astrology, astronomy, architecture, he's the father of it all. You give him something to live up to. I used to wear my pants sagging down too, but somebody pulled up my mind, and now they don't have to worry about my pants. So it's a formula, brother, that I want us to adopt. I'm not saying don't tell a brother to pull his pants up. I'm saying get in his head first, and if you can lift up his mind, then everything else is gonna be easy.
This is the first time in the United States of America that we've heard of an event like this put together to encourage black fathers, and you should give yourselves a round of applause for being here and making history. Now, we might sound strong today, but we not stupid. I'm going to say that again. We might sound strong today, but we're not stupid. Why do you say we're not stupid, Brother Derek? We're not stupid.
The Trayvon Martin case, I believe, was an indictment against America, the American justice system. That one that we hadn't seen in a long time, maybe since Emmett Till was killed in Mississippi. Very, 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 very explosive time in America. So there were a lot of different rallies and whatnot going on across the country, and there were several going on here in Houston. I helped as I could. We actually had a rally right here at the Shape Community Center. We had a couple thousand people to come out. What we were trying to do is use the Trayvon Martin case as a teachable moment. Young brothers have to understand that this is no conspiracy theory, but there is a design in the criminal justice system that is against the black male. The black male is being targeted in the United States of America. Always has been, always will be, until a change is made. Trayvon Martin represented us all. And it was something else, because about a month before Trayvon Martin was shot, you know, I lived in the downtown area at the time. And as you can see, I have a bald head. And it was winter time, January I think it was. So during winter time, I always wear a hoodie, put it on my head, not because I want to look like, you know, I'm hip hop, but because my head gets cold. Now, I dress like this every day, but when I put on my hoodie, people treat me noticeably different. So I wrote an article about how I was treated in my hoodie. It was called, what was it called, Najat? The Hoodie Experiment. This was before Trayvon Martin. This is before this happened with Trayvon Martin. Everybody started putting their hoodies on. So this article was published about a week before Trayvon got killed. And what I was doing is I was challenging black leadership, the black bourgeoisie and middle class. Put on your hoodie one day. Just put on a hoodie one day. And then just go out and about. See how differently you're treated. And when you see how differently you are treated, what you do is you get a glimpse of how they treat our little brothers and sisters every day. And when you see how they get treated every day, it makes you to understand better why they act the way they act. So I put this out, and in this article I had a picture of myself in a suit, and right beside it a picture of myself in a hoodie, basically saying, listen, I'm the same person, I'm just dressed differently. 2 weeks later, Trayvon Martin's killed, and everybody around the country is taking selfies wearing hoodies and so on and so forth. So I saw the whole Trayvon Martin, I'm trying to tell you how I saw it from my perspective, from a different perspective. Yes, it was about that beautiful brother, and it was about his family and what it is that they had to go through. But there have been so many other cases like that that have gone undocumented and did not become famous cases. And you gotta understand, I've been doing this for a long time, so I've seen it. I believe that God wanted to give the world an up-close and personal view of the injustice that we suffer in black families here in America. So we helped with the petition drive for Trayvon Martin. We held a rally here at the Shape Community Center for Trayvon Martin. We held several press conferences, and I even came out in a hoodie at a press conference, and we had what was called hoodies and headlights. So some we were saying, everybody wear your hoodie to work tomorrow and turn your lights on. And a lot of people ridiculed our young people for the way they protested, because people came on Instagram and Facebook with Skittles in their hands and tea and so on and so forth. And so they got a lot of flack for saying y'all are being ignorant, you're making Skittles rich, and I understand that sentiment, but that was our youth protesting the best way that they knew how. I just think we missed the whole thing. If that's the best way this man knows how to protest, then let him do that for now, until you teach him better. But it was very good to see so many young people stand up for Trayvon. And I think that what happened when Trayvon Martin was killed and George Zimmerman was set free is a sign that black people in this country can be awakened. We can be awakened. The only problem is we show this kind of unity and power in the response to an injustice that has been done to one of us. And that is fine. What we have to do is we have to show the same kind of unity and power in a proactive way. Let's not wait until the next Trayvon Martin happens. Let's come together now and start doing what we must do to prevent that.
Our father's effort to encourage black fathers. That was my Father's Day gift. Seeing my baby stand up for her dad, because she know her dad loves her, and her dad would do anything for her, and her dad would live for her and die for her. Give it up for my baby girl, Namar Muhammad. I just wanted to bring her up because she's got a plane to catch. She's on her way back to Dallas. She's got an internship with a law firm. She's doing great things. I love you, baby girl. I'm so proud of you.
That's what it's all about. That's black love.
Next, I want to acknowledge my wife, Sister Oni Muhammad. You can give her a big round of applause.
And you cannot have a black nationalism without having.
To my far right, we have my 11-year-old daughter, Najah Muhammad. She's a violinist.
But at some point, I realized that there's something unique about what God has put in me to do for the people that will not be something that's duplicable by anyone else in the future, and I can't duplicate what someone else or who someone else was in the past. Malcolm X is a very unique brother. I studied his life inside out over the years. Dr. King, very unique brother, very unique brother. I have studied his life inside out. More recently than before, because many of us come into this thing thinking that Dr. King was a sellout, if you will. But that's the picture that they paint of him. All they tell us about him was he had a dream. Well, black men don't want to hear that. But this is a man who went to his death. He knew they were going to kill him. And he would not bow down. He stood firm on what he believed. I admire that man immensely and greatly. And as much as we may look for one, there will never be another Dr. King. He was a specific man made for a specific time. Now, let's talk about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I've studied his life inside out. And what's profound about that is the fact that I get to study his life while he's still living. So he is a book. His life is a book that's still being written. His life is the one that has impacted me the most, because I've had the opportunity to follow along with him and watch him over the past 20 years. Why do you say that? I say that because this is a man who was around during the time of Malcolm. He was taught by Malcolm. He was around and shed tears when Dr. King was killed. So most of what I learned from back then, in context, I learned from Minister Farrakhan. And he teaches us how we can today relate to what took place back then and use it as wind beneath our wings today. People talking about creating another civil rights movement. That'll never happen again. That was a specific movement for a specific time to prove a specific point. It'll never happen again. So I think one of the things that we do is we make the mistake of trying to recreate the past rather than using our God-given creativity to light the way for the future for our freedom. So the past is beautiful to study, but God gave each one of us 2 feet. And both feet he gave us are facing forward. I've never seen a human being with their feet facing backwards. So that if you find yourself in a position where you don't know where to go, all you got to do is look down at your feet. It's about moving forward. But those men are icons to me. I see them the way some young people may see Nicki Minaj or, Drake or whoever the hot star is. Those are celebrities. Those are icons. not just those two. Brothers like Paul Robeson, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. These are icons to me. These are Noble Drew Ali. These are people that I study. Harriet Tubman. I'm just blown away by their lives. I'm blown away by their lives. But that's how I relate to the future. I mean, that's how I relate to them and their lives and their work. I look at it, I try to learn from it. What we can use in this day and time, we try to use. But what needs to be preserved for what was back then, we protect that history and